I had something different planned for the podcast, but I feel like we should go deeper into this because I am actually worried for my life right now. If this is something that comes to be. Good evening, Prashant. How are things at your end?
Hello, hello. Good. Can't complain.
So
So what?
I don't know why I found that funny. I thought that you'll start with some monologue or something like that. It's like, no, no, can't complain. No, you do it.
I don't
Oh
know,
my
man.
God. I
I'm
was
usually glass half full kind of a person, so people may disagree, but that's how I think about myself.
Oh well. How's crypto been treating you?
Um, That's fine. I'm kind of like probably spending more time than I should on how macro will influence crypto. Also because the market is a bit slow right now, mostly sideways, right? So yeah, I'm like with everything that's happening in macro, etc. I'm getting more and more bullish on crypto for the long term, which is good. And if we do see like a debt cycle breakdown, like Ray Dalio predicted, that will just be great for crypto, but it may not just be that good for us as people because usually
What
those
is
things happen with the war.
tell no? What can you expand on that? That's actually a cool new
No,
word
so
that you have introduced from your financy
so
jargon world.
you have these debt cycles, okay, and as debt keeps, so you usually economies get built upon credit and debt, right?
Hmm.
And then debt keeps piling on and on and on and on until it becomes too much of a stress for the particular country or currency on which it is built, such that it breaks, right?
Hmm.
At the point of breakage, what happens typically prior to the point of breakage, this particular currency is like a global reserve currency for the world.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was sterling before the dollar, and before that, at various points it was either the Dutch currency or the Portuguese currency, etc. If as you go back in time, and those economies are super powerful at that point because they are technically the reserve currencies. So every time a reserve currency changes from one currency to another, it usually coincides with this debt cycle bursting. Okay.
Hmm.
And by bursting, and the burst happens whereby other countries are now wanting to replace this reserve currency, but this existing country is super powerful and does not want that to happen. And
Hmm.
this conflict is usually resolved with a war, right?
Hmm.
The most recent example was World War Two, or World War One and Two, prior to which Britain or pound was like the reserve currency of the world, quasi, and then post that it became the dollar, right? So,
Right.
so that's what I mean. Like, I mean, we are, I think, specific to the dollar at this point. It's still the reserve currency, still the numero uno currency in the world.
Hmm.
But if this existing crisis within banking implies that they start printing more and take on more debt onto their own system, then we are going closer and closer toward the bursting of this debt cycle because it cannot happen forever. It's not a perpetual thing that any economy, however strong, can maintain, right? So
Hmm.
that's what I meant by this, and this was captured, I'm sure, and articulated much better than myself by Ray Dalio,
Hmm.
who is an OG, like one of the best hedge fund managers out there.
Well, on that topic, that this may be regrettably good news for crypto. The three greatest the three scariest words in English language have been uttered by the Twitterati, which is Balaji was right. So, have you seen this? This is actually a tweet that's going around right now. This is like the
How are you
scariest.
saying he was right? How has why are they saying he was right?
He
Specific to
predicted.
COVID, yes, but
Yeah, yeah. So
oh, that's what
generally,
they're saying. Okay.
when people oppose a contrarian view that he puts out, it so happens that that view is right.
Yeah.
And so, getting to the first topic, Balaji predicts that a couple of weeks back that, and also wagered a bet with somebody who asked him to do so, on the fact that Bitcoin will hit $1 million in value in 90 days. So I'm just going to stop there, right? Like I don't think discussed this on the podcast before because the last one we did was the emergency pod
Yeah.
with the SCB crash, and I I really don't get macroeconomics in such a fashion as to say pinpoint that all of this will accrue some sort of upward movement toward on to Bitcoin. So, being the finance whiz that you are, you should tell us what makes a learned man like Balaji say something like this, and should we prepare for this?
Oh, yeah. So I think, I mean, he's super smart, right? And COVID, he was brilliant in terms of how he dissected that entire thing. And much before the world, he kind of said that at the rate at which it is growing, it is going to be an epidemic, right? And which is
Mm.
what it turned out to be. Coming to Bitcoin, I think I heard him on which podcast? I think Pomp's podcast, where he's like, I'm not saying that this will happen in 90 days. I know I wagered a bet around it, but I just wanted people to be aware that we are moving in that direction, right? And this again goes back to what I mentioned previously about debt cycles breaking up, and there being like conflicts and people wanting to move to another form of currency to preserve value, right? And that's what he's also talking about. He's saying US is the only way they can come out of this existing banking crisis is by printing more money. The more they print, the more debt they accrue. And if the banking kind of is collapsing as we speak, which is what he feels is happening, then um, there is a systemic crisis of confidence within the US on the US dollar and from
Mm.
outside as well. And as you keep printing to kind of save this, you are also letting inflation run loose because you're not
Mm.
technical enough. We are cutting rates, you're printing more, and then inflation runs loose, right? And then what happens is you enter into a territory of hyperinflation.
Mm.
And what hyperinflation does is it just effectively makes your currency worth nothing. This has happened in the past with Deutsche Mark in during World War II, right? Or
Mm.
was it World War II or prior to World War II? Actually, it happened between World War One and Two, which is what kind of gave rise to the Third Reich.
Mm.
As So, anyways, coming back to Balaji, so that's what he's saying, right? I mean, the way US is progressing right now with this crisis and how they have been tackling these crisis over the last couple of decades implies we are moving towards a hyperinflating USD, which means that most of the assets we own, which are like if you're owning USD, then you are at risk. Okay, and because USD is reserve, he can't see. I don't think he sees any other alternative in the fiat world to kind of replace the USD as such. And therefore, he's saying a very good. Again, this is my interpretation. A great way to insure yourself against such an event is by holding something like Bitcoin, which has fixed supply,
Mm.
right? And he goes one step beyond that and says now that even if you're holding Bitcoin, but if it is within centralized exchanges, then you are giving these centralized entities control over what you hold, and therefore own Bitcoin and then take it into your own possession because this particular our currency allows you to do it, right? So
Mm.
I don't think hand on heart even he believes this is going to happen in 90 days,
Mm.
but he sees the world moving in this direction, right? To me, when I look at it, I'm like, he definitely does not need the eyeballs. He has a lot of eyeballs on him anyways, right? But I think he's just sending a message out there. To me, it's like whenever Bitcoin hits 1 million, if it happens within like any time in the next 2 3 years, right? It means that something structurally has broken in the system for
Mm.
people, institutions, everyone to pile into Bitcoin. And it may be good for people holding Bitcoin, but at the same time, it may not be like a perfect world that you want to live in.
Yeah, somebody was saying that for BTC to get there, we'll need to have a market cap of something like $19 trillion or $20 trillion
Yeah.
at the supply that exists. Like that, and I don't think that money comes from retail. It is the large Goldman Sachs and the BNY Mellons of the world that now say, okay, you know what, we should hold another currency to hedge
Yeah, and maybe
ourselves
central
against
banks,
this.
right? And maybe central
Yeah.
banks all across governments start holding. But then you then need to ask why are they holding this against any of those other currencies, right? See,
Hmm.
the other problem is as hyperinflation happens, then people who are closer to source of money can keep protecting themselves by getting more and more money, right? But
Hmm.
the two-tiered society just becomes so extreme that there will be massive. There is undoubtedly going to be a civil war at that point.
Right.
And yeah, and so that's what I'm saying when I say it's a very scary world to think about. That's what I mean.
It's almost like even if you are rich because you hold Bitcoin, then personal safety becomes a problem because
Exactly.
you are the haves at that point, and the have-nots
Yeah,
are
and your
everything.
money is not. Everyone knows your money is not at a bank; it's with you, right?
Oh my
Then
God.
you're probably using that to buy guns and like investing in bunkers and like all that stuff, right? And then yeah,
Oh my God, man. It's such a bad view. Okay, is there a silver lining somewhere here? Is there a way to avoid this in some capacity?
see, I mean, for okay, if we come back to basics here in terms of how US or we don't go through this debt cycle bust or keep elongate extending it for as much time as possible. They have to kind of reduce the rate of growth of debt or reduce debt overall, right? How do
Hmm.
you do that? You either generate more income by taxing more people, or taxing rather the rich people, or you reduce expenditures like any sort of like social welfare that you're giving. Or third, I think this is where I think hopefully it comes out from is that technology is a savior, whereby we find new elements of technology that enable us to increase productivity in the world. And if you increase productivity and the economy starts growing rapidly again, right, then that's one way out of this debt as well. So these are probably the only ways that you kind of get around this. One and two is very difficult because both are highly political, to kind of tax
Hmm.
rich people or like even reduce spending, right? That's highly political. So technology hopefully is the way out of this by increasing productivity.
So are you suggesting things like AI and the
Yeah.
promise that it can hold? Yeah, man. And
AI,
but
blockchain, or even energy wise, right? I mean, can we find newer sources of energy that are a lot cheaper and more easily accessible globally? So cost of goods comes down, and then productivity automatically increases on the back of it as well.
what are the chances of this happening? Do you see that?
So yeah, the third one, it doesn't happen overnight, right? The only thing that happens overnight is taxing and reducing welfare. Third one does not happen overnight, but with hopefully AI is kind of like a shot in that direction.
Yeah, but it's super early, right? Like if you heard
It is.
Sam Altman's podcast with Lex Friedman, where he talks about how do you think you would look at GPT-4, he'd say that it would be a footnote in in the way in the history of AI and what it can actually do because it's so rudimentary and in terms of the actual potential that AI can achieve. So I am, you know, I feel like as a crypto community, we should actually be praying that the 1 million BTC does not happen, right? Because that
Yeah,
means
yeah,
that the
yeah.
world is breaking. Oh my
I,
God!
I,
Like,
I I put out a tweet exactly on that, which was liked by exactly zero people, but that's exactly what I said.
of course,
Um,
you go onto Twitter and say something like that, where everybody wants their BTC to pump, and you tell them, guys,
yeah,
don't
man,
wish for
it's
this.
Web3 is way too capitalistic than what it likes to admit. Also, specific to AI itself, right? I think there was some petition going around just yesterday that some of the key voices want the amount of work that is happening towards expanding use of AI to reduce, right? So because they're not very sure where exactly this is going and how much of like a thinking ability it will have over a period of time, and are we going towards Skynet, right? No one is clear about it. So yeah.
So run for the hills, find a bunker. If Bitcoin goes higher, buy self-defense things around your house, and just hope like hell that nobody finds you.
Yeah, see, I mean, how much I hold, or I'm assuming even you hold will like, I mean, there's no point coming after us,
He went that way. That guy has more.
Exactly. So ROI of
So
coming after us is like, negative probably. So I think we need to worry much. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's something we need to worry about immediately. But it's a very good reason why people should diversify into something like this, right? It's like insurance or protection against yeah, not Armageddon, but apocalypse.
what's the difference, bro? It's the same thing.
Yeah, Mad Max.
Mad Max only. Oh my God, this. I had something different planned for the podcast, but I feel like we should go deeper into this because I am actually worried for my life right now. If this is something that comes to be, Why is this not a narrative that, hey guys, like, why are you not worried about the implications of this coming true?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of chatter around that. It's either like, yeah, this is wrong or this is right, but not about implications. Yeah, see, again, it's one of those things, right, where it sounds way too I would say outlandish to say something like what we are discussing here. But if you look at the cycles the world has gone through, right, it's not we have seen this in the past, is what I would say.
When did we see this in the past?
Yeah, like I said, right,
The World War
world
One,
was,
World War
yeah,
Two.
yeah, yeah, correct.
Bro. Okay. It's really crazy. Have you been listening to Arthur Hayes? I feel like he's had the most, and a lot of what you said is very similar to what he's been saying as well about, but his reasoning ends at, hey, get out of the banks, don't store your crypto on centralized exchanges, keep it with yourself, and so on. But yeah, how much do you trust somebody like Arthur Hayes? I love his writing. I think that he has a lot to say. But this was the same dude who predicted $1 million BTC in 2018 and 19, uh, which almost felt self-serving at that time. So when you listen to these influencers, who it's not the bombastic ones that I'm worried about, but these middle guys who actually make a lot of sense, but at the same time have their self-interest there. Like, what is your
Yep.
method of consuming this content, and what do you what is your framework for taking the right things away from it?
See, anything that is mathematically provable
Hmm.
is something I naturally trust. Anything that
Hmm.
feels outlandish, immediately I go back to the source to see what is his or her incentive to make something like this as a prediction. If there is none, then you dig into it. If there is any element of conflict there, then it's very difficult to then take it beyond that. And I typically stay away from like what influencers say
Hmm.
towards positioning myself in life or even in my portfolio, right? Because they are incentivized to say that. So
Hmm.
it's very difficult to then take them at face value.
Yeah, man.
But I mean, specific to Arthur, I mean, he writes brilliantly, right? And clearly a very very smart guy, very well read, very well traveled. But yeah, I mean, he does make a lot of outlandish claims as well. I think see, some of the end goals or the effects that he is suggesting will it's very similar to what we are discussing. But the path from here to there is very unclear.
Hmm. A lot of the things that he talks about is in line with Silvergate and Signature and SVB crashing. And while of course there's this endemic bank problem there, and thereby there is this fallout that the U.S. economy is not. Any economy that doesn't have a strong banking system doesn't necessarily almost always has flatline growth for the next 30, 40 years. He took examples of, say, Japan, where the same thing happened in the 70s. The thing that a lot of the crypto guys seem to be taking out of this, right? Like I was speaking to a fund manager some time back, and I was asking him like, what is it looking like? And he said like in the last month or so, in the last year or so, he's had to switch his bank 9 times uh, for the money that he had to take from one place to the- for some reason or the other, that the bank died, or the bank
Right.
then found out that, oh, it came from your source of fund came from a Hong Kong entity, so that's not on. Another one that essentially says that got acquired by a larger bank which had an anti-crypto position. So, oh, no, you're doing crypto, so that's not possible. So there are two questions there, which I want that I wanted to kind of dig deeper into. One is, what is the impact of crypto outside of the fact that reserve currency changing and BTC going into it? Why do, in this light, why, what is the government's problem with crypto? And the second thing, which I can get to in second, but like let's do this bit first, right? Like, is
Yeah.
there like a coordinated attack by the government to shut down to kind of uh, get rid of the endpoints, the on ramps and off ramps, uh, with crypto, and despite the massive number of problems that they have, this dude told me that they still found time to shut down the crypto things that were happening with these banks. So do you see some sort of coordinated attack against crypto that the government is doing, headed by the US right now?
See, again, I mean, it would feel like a conspiracy theory to say that that is the case, and I think I would like to steer clear of it. Again, let's look at facts here, right? And again, when one anecdote here is when I was at this CoinDCX Namaste Web3 event in Delhi. We had regulators there, and we had like a very good engaged conversations, etc. Right? And one of them, not the regulator, but from someone from the government, they mentioned that blockchain is great, crypto is very dicey, and the fundamental reason for that is that it threatens the financial sovereignty of a country. Right? What that means is, say, specific to India, if Bitcoin or crypto becomes like the unit of exchange or the store of value, right? Then it is then replacing the INR, right? And then and that's a very scary proposition. We can sit where we are and say that yeah, but we don't trust centralized institutions, but we are people who have access to technology, have had good educations, and we have this problem. But think of like the 95% of the country that is still reliant on the rupee, and therefore the central bank to kind of protect their interests, right? And that's a big scary thing for any regulator or government. So I think that is the standpoint that they primarily come from, and anecdotally it has been mentioned by the person I spoke with, right? So, and it makes complete sense. Now, if we look at it from that sense, then you can say that regulation coming in can kind of protect this big risk that of sovereignty that the government sees, right? Now, specific to the US, if you look at the 3 banks that collapsed, Silvergate was a direct reaction to FTX. Silicon Valley was just different type of depositors that it had, way too high uninsured deposits, which just went for the hills. The problem I have is with Signature Bank, right? Because even until now, we are not very clear why Signature Bank was shut down. It was said that there is contagion. It was also mentioned that they had a type of crypto customers, which was not. I don't know what the words were exactly, but it was never made very clear why this was being shut down, right? And that I think is, if you look at facts, that part is where you have to start. You have to probably question a bit as to like why the government or the regulator did something like this, and they're not being very transparent about it, right? So that part is not clear. So a very long answer to your simple question. I don't think it's very easy to just say there is a coordinated attack, because crypto does threaten financial sovereignty. But there could be players who are incentivized to protect their interests, right? And that is not something that is very easy to tease out of these situations that arise.
Let me take my tinfoil hat out, keep it to the side, and get to some work stuff. I think, did you see the EigenLayer Series A announcement that happened yesterday?
Yeah.
So EigenLayer is this modular blockchain, and they announced a $50 million Series A at some $2 billion valuation, led by Blockchain Capital and Lemnis Cap and all of these large funds. That brings me to a fund question, and maybe we will be touching a little bit upon the industry insider stories over here. But coming back to Author Haze, right? Like, he's launched a new fund called Maelstrom, and he was on the chopping block with Hasib Qureshi and Tarun Chitra and Rob Lesnar, and he said it really still cracks me up as to how open he was about this, right? Let's say he's like, okay, so Bitcoin is going to go up for sure. I think that there is appetite for risk capital for people who want to be Bitcoin's growth, right? And the way that
who want to be what?
For assets that can beat Bitcoin's growth, right? So,
okay.
So he's like, and the answer is tokens. Now, I can invest in a company. I don't know when I'm going to get an exit out of when I invest in equity. It'll probably have to do IPO, or somebody will have to buy it. I don't have time to wait for 7 years and all. So I've set up a family office that will invest in a interesting project that is doing some cool stuff. And I'll invest in a token. 2 to 3 years later, they will do TGE. When they do TGE, the price I got it at and the price it hits the market will be so different that I'll make an exit there. And here is the darnest part of what he said. Okay, and all true, by the way. There's none of this is like false. He's like, it's not like I'm not going to invest in funny shit, right? If there is if there is something stupid that is going on that a lot of people are aping into, I'll be there because at the end of the day, they'll put a token out and I'll make my money, right?
Yeah.
So the larger question is this: are we still living in that world? Is this, or and does this party stop? Because anyone who's been privy to this, right, like the early
Yeah.
stage investing, being close to the founder and all of that, and investing in them, and this is so pertinent for me because our business would at some point um, leverage some sort of investing that we get into. Is this? I feel like it's a 2018 to 2020 21 phenomena. Will this continue till 2024 2025? Is this something that will end? Because when you hear Arthur Hayes say that,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like, "This is here. I don't think it's going anytime soon." But
Yeah. I
if
mean,
it's
look,
that obvious, it's
it
gonna
is.
go,
See,
right?
you have to give Arthur a lot of credit for this, right? Because
Mm,
the reason I say that is
mm,
you and I know this, right? A lot of people do this in our market, and not a lot of people acknowledge that they are doing it.
yeah,
What Arthur is effectively saying is, I am no one to judge. I am only here to make multiples, right? And that is what I'm gonna do, regardless of what the project is. As long as I can see multiples in it, then I'm gonna go after it, right? And
yeah,
that's again like a very capitalistic way of thinking. And he's like, my single biggest shareholder here is my family office. I want to multiply its value, so
yeah,
therefore that's what I'm going to do. That is my north star here, right? So don't judge me for like the type of projects I'm backing. And
yeah.
I mean, I'm no one to judge him for wanting to do that. Will such opportunities exist in crypto? I think it will, because it's very open source, and we still can't make sense for like the meme coins, or a lot of stuff, right? So um, I think there is an open space for that to happen. Will it happen as much as it did in 2018 to 2019? I don't think so. And the reason that I say that is, if the Fed doesn't print as much as it did in the past, and if the rates still stay like at 3 to 4% for a lengthy period, then access to capital becomes difficult, right? And when access
Mm,
to capital becomes difficult, it starts flowing relatively into the more promising projects, and less into the speculative projects, right? Even if it does, then if it was like a 2 week pump and dump, it will probably become a 2 day pump and dump, right? So less and less people will want to be part of something that is so fleeting. So I think it
mm.
will be less. It will still be there.
Okay. Another thing that he said was so crazy. Okay, so he was like, "Oh, and I will definitely not lead. I want no such reputation for myself. If some other big fund and my friends are investing in it, I'll put some $50,000 to $100,000 in it."
Yeah,
He's
smart.
not even hiding it anymore, dude. Like,
Yeah, I can see. I mean, as a fund, right,
Hmm,
we go very deep into diligence, as you may know, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
we've not had any rug pull or like any of the sorts, right? And
Hmm,
we anything that thinks even like 5%, we don't even touch it, right? And that's a
hmm.
very specific decision that we as a fund have taken. But again, these projects do get funded out there, man. So everyone has their own different way to look at this.
Oh, well. Well, on that note, Prashant Swaminathan, thank you for elucidating the existing world that we live in. I am betting against BTC doing that because hopefully at some point I feel common sense will prevail. Like if we don't learn from the history, the mistakes that we made in the past, I feel like we've not progressed at all. And I think that the world has progressed. And secondly, um, my belief in technology and what it can do is definitely increasing. And so there is one interesting concept that I do want to kind of share here. And there is one essay that has really given me a lot of a lot of food for thought. There was one of the big AI researchers at that time who wrote a paper where he said something to the effect of work is for machines, living is for humans, right? And where he makes the case for an AI driven world where all the work is done by artificial intelligence and smart machines, right? Because they are machines, they don't need a break. The productivity is 100x,
Yeah.
and companies are taxed slightly higher because
Hmm.
their costs, their human resources costs have dramatically gone down.
Yeah.
But a large part of that capital that now the governments actually have goes into universal basic income, where it is not that I am paying you so you can live off it. It is that your basic needs and dignity
Yeah.
is covered by certain amounts, by certain amount of money, right?
Yeah. Also,
Uh,
also if work is done by machines, then people are not doing work, right? So you need some sort of income.
Yeah, exactly. And then we can produce art, we can do creative things, and that is the world that Andrew Yang, for example, spoke about quite heavily in his I think was it 2020, the last US elections, the one before Biden's.
Hmm.
He No, the Biden's elections is the one where he actually spoke about it, where he was one of the Democratic candidates and said that we have to move towards a world of UBI, because it's not the immigrants that are taking your jobs. It is actually just lines and lines of robotic arms that are sitting in the Amazon workshops that is taking away your jobs right now, which that really makes me believe that that it's a radical change, but it's better than war. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is hopefully better sense prevails. I've been Raghu. This has been Prashant. I think that this is a wrap for our return episode. I think we got to be a little more consistent with this. Next week,
Yeah.
we will have a very, very interesting guest on board that kind of delves deeper into regulations. But until then, signing off. This is Normie 1 and Normie 2. Prashant. See you later.
See you guys.